Hello and welcome to the Level Up Lounge. I'm John and we're back for Season 2. It's been a bit of a break, I will say that. There's going to be some ring rust today, but I'm going to try and box it off. And what better to have two absolutely cracking guests joining me today. So I'm going to welcome them now. I've got Chris Hewish, President, and Berkley Egenes, who is the Chief Marketing and Growth Officer for Xsolla. So gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
No, it's an absolute pleasure.
It's going to be fun.
Perfect. So welcome to the Level Up Lounge. I kind of wanted to just give a bit of an overview into kind of your backgrounds to sort of set the scene for your experience and kind of where you're at now in your careers. Obviously, Chris, your career, Activision, DreamWorks, obviously Servius, and now obviously President at Xsolla, some absolutely cracking companies, and I'll probably pick your brains on some of them games that you've had involvements in. And obviously Berkley, you've obviously bringing that experience from the sort of the esports industry and bringing that into kind of working very much building the Ghost Gaming brand and the sponsorships and everything. It's really placed you well, I think, into the role that you're in right now, and kind of want to understand that. So highlights of your careers so far, and obviously you're going to say Xsolla, but before Xsolla, what's kind of the highlight, would you say, of your career to date and the journey that you've been on to get you where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the highlight of my career was the 13 years that I spent at Activision.
Yeah.
And that really taught me so much and set up so much for the success that I'm enjoying today and the ability to help developers all over the world with what we're doing at Xsolla. So that was a great period of time. Joined that company when it was about 100 people and helped scale it through thousands, and then through the launch of the original Call of Duty and Spider-Man and Tony Hawk and all of these memorable games, which has been such a joy to have been part of.
They're just nostalgia games, aren't they? Those early days of Activision and some of the stuff that they were putting out. I think it's just anyone that I talk to in the industry that's got those early roots in some absolute legacy games. I think whenever I speak to people and they say that goes back to kind of the highlight of my career, being in it at that early stage where there's so many games that come out now and there's only so many that break through. But back then, it was when there was a big game came out, it hit. And I think that's what I think, if that was me, that would obviously be that I'd be sort of rooting back for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The games, but also the camaraderie, like the people that I had met when working there and who have stayed lifelong connections, and seeing them, also progress through the industry. There's a real kind of bond, know, from that OG crowd, and that's just, it's so great to be part of that.
Do you look across that now and see where a lot of those people are and the positions that they hold? Because I know that they are kind of sitting at the top of a lot of the big studios and publishers, etc., sort of globally. And is it kind of a nice sort of nod to see them and where they are and think we've come a long way?
It is. I mean, it's a joy to see others succeed, right? And at the same time, there is a validation of like, wow, okay, we really had something special, and it was a great group of people that not only enjoyed making some fun games, but really knew what they were doing, and that really has been, displayed as the careers have evolved over time. But it's still, at the same time, it's still really kind of like, wow, I can't believe he's in charge of that, or I'm doing this, it's really cool.
Do you want to name drop any of them?
No. That's why I pivoted to me. I'm like, stop that.
And how about you, Berkley? What would you say kind of is a highlight of your career up to this point?
So it's been a fun journey. I've always been at that intersection of technology and brand experiences and creating a culture to go do that. Came out of not only tech, but then went into the CPG world. So I was an agency guy for over a decade, and it was great brands, televisions, cereal and beer. Those are great combinations when you get to have phone calls. One minute you're talking about cereal, next thing you're talking about beer and what we're doing in sports and entertainment. But it's always been that passion of mine, growing up playing sports and being very, very competitive, growing up in Texas and playing Texas sports and going into it and then putting that into your career. One of the cool projects we had was everybody from the Olympics, when they would come back in the U.S., they would go on a Wheaties box. So we were the ones that changed that methodology and put them on the cover of cornflakes. So we brought the Golden Girls from the gymnastics team on the cover of cornflakes, and a lot of the Olympic champions that came on to the forward and doing it, but really changing like how do you engage, how do you create content, how do you build a brand and change the thinking of what was going on, a 100-year-old company, and then being able to bring them into sports and entertainment. Now you see them all over ESPN in the United States, and from the college football programs and things that are going on, and really getting in some fun experiences. You have a Pop-Tarts Bowl, you have a Cheez-It Bowl, and things like that go on to it, but really see the maturation of brands like that go into it. And then to carry that on into your career to build brands like what we're doing here at Xsolla is really keeping, learning from some of those foundations and applying it on a daily basis, and seeing the growth and trajectory that we've seen, particularly coming in at Xsolla as we go, and being very future forward. That this next journey in what we're making and building and our commitments to do that's going to be a lot of fun. That is going to be a new highlight for all of us at Xsolla that we go into it. So ask me that in a couple of years or the next visit that we're over here on, and we will have some very detailed stories to walk through on.
Perfect. And I want to talk about the Xsolla journey coming up, so let's not spoil that too soon. But obviously, look, you're both very well dressed today. Yes. I'm not. I've come from home, but you guys have both come from the World Government Summit. So thank you very much for making the time to come here from that. But I kind of wanted to, outside of the region, the World Government Summit seems like a somewhat unusual place to be talking about gaming and why it really sort of matters. For anyone kind of watching this or listening to this, what conversations are happening that gaming leaders need to be a part of? Because when you think of sort of World Government Summits and stuff like that, you're thinking of economy and you're thinking of geological type stuff. Where does gaming fit into that, and why is it so important that it's part of the agenda?
Sure. So, gaming is important because games truly are massive economic movers, right? They're such a big part of the economy these days, much more than just entertainment. And now at the World Government Summit, we are seeing people in government around the world and regulators really understanding that games are much more than just a simple pastime or means of entertainment, that they really are these complex digital economies and ecosystems that not only drive a lot of revenue within a country, but the ecosystem around them is really tied to job creation and national identity and brand and IP, culturally being distributed around the world. So there's so many elements that go into a games business beyond just the games being fun to play. And governments are now really paying attention and realizing, like, oh my gosh, these are like GDP numbers, right? A percentage of GDP, and a great way for countries to really kind of expand and grow their economies. So there's conversations around, how do we understand the game economies? How do we understand the game business or the game infrastructure? What do we need to pay it? And when I say we, I mean governments. How do we pay attention to this? How do we create great environments for games to flourish and for game businesses and industries to flourish within our country, or attract other game companies to come in, and on and on and on. So a complex business finally being realized and treated as a complex business that has a lot of value that can be brought into a country.
Yeah, and I think obviously gaming, to those that work within gaming, understand where it sits in the entertainment industry. But then it's obviously then taking it to the next level and understanding where it sits within sort of the youth culture. Where does it sit within a whole sort of economic environment? And I think that this region has shown a lot of interest and a lot of promise in terms of it is a very young driven audience. I do feel with the new generation there is a concern about how do we engage with this new generation that is very, I would say it's not, I sound really old when I say about it, but I will sit and play a game and focus in on that game, whereas the new generation want quick. It's everything has to be activated very quickly. And I do think it's important for governments to actually then start to understand how do we tap into that audience and how do we tap into that to actually create the environment. And something that Dubai and Abu Dhabi have been trying to do in the UAE as such is, what do we need to do to bring studios, developers, publishers into this region? So it's good for me to see, as someone that's part of this ecosystem, is that this is being discussed at the highest possible level within this region and globally, to be like, well, how do we make this happen? Where is the direction that we need to move into? So it's promising that you guys are here. You're part of those conversations, obviously, with the amount of sort of, I would say, tooth that you've got in the game as well, to be able to sort of add value to that global conversation. So we kind of touched on it there, but how do you feel from the conversations you've had? And you might not be able to give me too much info on this because it's very raw and very just happened, but How has that information, those conversations been received, would you say? Has it been positive in terms of how do you feel coming out of those conversations?
Yeah, I feel that it has been received very positively. I think one of the important things is that as an industry, we're coming in more of an advisory role versus an advocacy role. And when you talk about governments and regulations, that's very important, because as the game industry can work around anything, but what we really need in order to succeed in a region is just predictability. Make clear rules, let the game industry understand what those rules are, and then we can build something around that is successful. So that's one of the key themes that's being discussed and communicated versus any particular type of regulation. In addition to that, though, it is really advising and getting across the understanding that games are very complex digital economies. And what happens in a game is often a lead indicator of what might be happening in your digital economy more broadly. And what I mean by that is if there's a particular regulation or lack of one or lack of clarity around something, it'll often show up first in what's happening in a game ecosystem. Because games really are impacted by consumer protections, data laws, privacy laws, child online protection, fintech rules, regulations. All of these things really converge in a digital game economy. And so what may take time to sort of show itself as a good or a bad regulation in one particular area where it may be intended will much more quickly show itself in just this cohesive game ecosystem. So it's really getting that kind of understanding that, hey, look, you can really learn a lot from what's happening in a healthy or unhealthy game economy in regards to a digital ecosystem. And then beyond that, there's just the physical infrastructure. You mentioned, in the region here, getting the support of governments and industry to be able to really create a good infrastructure, not just in regards to funding, but talent, understanding the time horizons that games are under for determining whether a game is successful or not, being able to support a game as it sort of goes from launch to sustaining itself to eventually scaling, and having an infrastructure that is patient, right, is another big sort of thing that we're sharing and seems to be landing well.
Perfect. No, it sounds good, and I'm glad to hear those conversations have been happening. I want to sort of bring that then into MENA, because we've started to touch on MENA there and kind of what the industry should be maybe watching for. And I mentioned this before we went on air, that Xsolla seems quite bullish on this region. You've been here for quite a while and been very involved, and it's great to see, because we've been trying to help build this ecosystem here at Level Up. We've been trying to sort of be as active and involved in doing our part of it for probably the last 4 years now, and we've seen progression. And it's been great to watch that progression. But I think having partners such as Xsolla coming in and really sort of adding an extra layer of that, obviously we help from a talent perspective and trying to help build communities. But I think what you guys are able to do has been fantastic in terms of actually giving platforms and leverage as well. But obviously, Chris, this is your second time in the region. It's been a while, and I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it so far. Obviously, Berkley, you've been here a lot more regularly. I've seen you quite a lot in Dubai over the last sort of, I would say, 6 months or so. But from your perspective, is this a market that global investors, VCs, should be paying attention to? And I'm going to start with the investment piece first of all, because that seems one of the big caveats that this region not wants, it's what they need. And you get a lot of studios here want to be here, want to launch here. They struggle with investment. So do you feel that it's one that global VCs and investors should be looking at this region going, you know what, this is the right place to put my money. I think that they're doing the right things over here.
I do, but it comes with, I think, a nuance, right? Traditional investment, which wants to get in and get out quickly, right? Have not overnight, but very quick success, high multiple turnarounds in a short period of time. That's not the right approach in a region like this, which is still developing, building up the infrastructure. Investments that come in and take more of a infrastructure and ecosystem approach and come in with the understanding that they're going to be here for a while and they're going to kind of build things up and reap the rewards a little bit further down the line, that I think is what is needed in the region, so that it can not put undue pressure to have quick hits, which, often that's you're incentivized to get a game out fast, and then most often they fail, and then there is not the funding or the support to get to your second or third game, which is where the magic usually happens in games. So I think having the right kind of investment approach is important here. And it will pay off. I firmly believe it'll pay off in the long run because this is one of the fastest growing regions. It is projected to be one of the top regions for game revenue in the future. As you mentioned earlier, young population, tech savvy, heavy emphasis on gaming, right?
Yeah.
Playing games, a lot of passion, a lot of talent, and it just needs that time to evolve and become a real robust economy in and of itself.
It makes a ton of sense for us to be here because it's into our core vision. You said the right word, ecosystem, and that's what we're trying to build globally. And we do it in a hyper-localized way as we go into specific regions. And you look at like the MENA 3 that's going on in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and looking at Egypt as well. And like what the opportunities and what the commitments, and you're seeing from the local governments talking about the summit and everything that's going on. They're making commitments, DPG 33, but the vision and like it's coming down the road in all of the different organizations that are supporting those initiatives are opening up opportunities, are welcoming people to come to Dubai, to come partner and collaborate with the DMCC as an example, and what they have in the gaming community and the cryptos and the AI community as well. Looking at that, and when you have government support and do that, and is here with like open arms and welcoming people to it, it's not one to kind of investigate, it's one to invest in. And it's not on the wish list anymore, it's on the must-do list in building and putting it into it. So the investment opportunities that are here, but it's not just the money, it's the infrastructure, the places to go build and develop a game. You're no longer in a garage game situation or at home or remote work. Like you can come collaborate in some of these centers that are being built up here and giving those opportunities to do it. We've looked all over the Middle East in different places in looking at investment opportunities for us, and we look at where business is asking us to go, where the developers are asking us to be, and we make those moves strategically to support what's going on. We have now had 18 offices around the world, and we'll open a few more this year because of what's going on in those governments, and this being one of those locations that we're looking at, and we're making investments, we're making commitments to go help build that ecosystem. And at Dubai, specifically here in the opportunity, there's a lot of events in Abu Dhabi. You mentioned earlier, there's one next week that's going on here as well. We're going to go back to the States because there's another event there. So we'll be in like two continents in the same time zone that happens a lot in our ecosystem. And this is starting to become a bit, Middle East in general is becoming an epicenter of what's coming on and the growth and the opportunities. You're seeing esports collaborations, you're seeing festivals being put together. And it's not just once a year, it's multiple times a year, and it's exciting to be a part of. And we've been here a bit going into it. We have people on the ground that are making a difference here locally, and they're going to help build that community. And so it's going to be exciting to see, even in the speed at which it happens here is incredible. I mean, you just look at the infrastructure and what's been built in the buildings every time I come here, and it's like, that was just a dirt patch last time I was here, and now you have the infrastructure of a building being a skyscraper being built and put together, and the rate at which things happen and move. And that's important from a gaming perspective because game development doesn't go slow. Yes, it takes a while to create games, but what happens all the time in rules and regulations and policies. We wake up every day and I look at my phone kind of with one eye open. I was like, what now? Because there's some government regulation, there's some new opportunities, there's a platform change of what's going on. And Dubai has that opportunity to help support and facilitate those mechanisms, and that's why we're here.
No, and I back the same viewpoint that you do. I think obviously DMCC is we're an ecosystem partner of, and you guys are heavily involved in as well, and just what they've managed to create in a short period of time. Obviously, Dubai have now formed their sort of government committee focused around gaming. There's a sort of local-based VC, Antler, that are now going to start investing into Emirati-founded studios. So it's all moving in the right direction, and it's great to see. And I think that momentum is building, like you say, is so quick. Obviously, we spoke earlier, you've not been in Dubai for 11 years, and you've seen the changes in that 11 years.
Amazing.
Imagine what they can just do from an ecosystem development or even just an infrastructure point of building an environment for developers, for creators to be able to ultimately thrive. And I think that I've spoke to a lot of people that come and join these ecosystems, stuff like DMCC, and they say they've never felt so kind of invited in and welcomed into an environment of peers. And I think that that's something that Dubai really has going in its strength on this as well. How do you see, and this is a kind of a question in terms, you mentioned the big three in terms of the UAE, you've got Saudi and Egypt. Obviously, where do you sit in terms of Saudi and seeing what they've got going on over there? There seems to be that they are somewhat a little ahead in places. You've got esports is a big investment piece for them, international acquisitions in terms of your Scopely's, Electronic Arts, but also a lot of accelerators and innovation sort of programs such as NEOM, such as kind of you've got investors in like Merak and Excel. How do you see the landscape there? And it's something that you're keeping an eye on and somewhere that you're being involved in as well.
Yeah, we're having a lot of conversations with them as well as we go into it. Within the region, the investment is there. There's a cultural shift that's happening in that country too as well, as to what they want to be more technology, more innovative, more thought leadership that's going into it. So that cultural shift is what's exciting too. And you're seeing game development, you're seeing a ton of investment. Some of the largest deals in the history of games and a lot of industries have been made over the last, 3 years that are going on to it. You're seeing a lot of expats going into Saudi Arabia and to Riyadh specifically to support that and what they're building and the opportunity. Again, it's a little different approach because it's more investment heavy going into it, but what the Savvy Group and everybody's doing there is building, and it's another ecosystem opportunity, which is really encouraging. And it's, companies that go in there and take the investment have that unique opportunity to take advantage of those resources that's available to them, then can look at product life cycles and how they go launch, or they, if you go private, you can launch it when you have a great game versus on a quarterly cycle. You'll hear people talk about that just in general on a debate. Do you go private or do you go IPO? Do you go different things? And like when you go public in that scenario, then you're building on a quarterly basis sometimes, and your game may or not be ready, but you have to push it because you have earnings to report to. So those are interesting conversations that are happening. Again, another ecosystem that's going into it, and it's really encouraging. What they did in August now with the esports festivals is huge. Yeah. Huge amounts of money and opportunities that you're seeing, and it's like they're answering the question: is esports still alive? And 100% is. And what they're seeing, and it's massive month-long program, millions and millions and millions of dollars being put in. Fans from all over the world are coming into Riyadh, and it's a great opportunity. It's gonna be fun to watch where that goes in the next 3 to 5 years.
Perfect. Well, look, I'm glad that you guys are here, and I'm pleased to see what your value you're going to add to the ecosystems here. So long may it continue. Now, I want to kind of move on to Xsolla. I've noticed recently that the nice little red logo is now blue, and there's obviously a rebrand that's gone along with this. What's the thinking behind it? Where does it come from? What is it for? Where are you going with it? I'm really keen to sort of dive into this and understand a little bit more. I said I was going to wear my Stevenage shirt today, a big logo on the front.
We got a new one. We have a new one.
I know, I can't wear that. I can't wear that anymore. So come on then. Tell me more. What's kind of the thinking behind this rebrand?
It comes back to our core and what we believe in opportunities and being forward thinking. We've had conversations, a 20-year-old company looking at it, it's like, hey, do we do Xsolla 20? Like a lot of brands and organizations do, and we're like, no, let's rebrand. Let's talk about the mission and be very kind of out front in what our mission is. We're building the future of games. We're building all the things to help game developers be successful, to launch, grow, and win. But it's more than payments that we've historically been as a company. And so where the foundation was over 20 years ago, where we've gone and where we're building now, it's monetization, it's distribution, it's funding, it's collaboration, it's creator economies, it's partner collaborations that are putting that together, and what moves that we're making that we'll soon be able to announce, and solutions and products that we're rolling out that are going to make a difference, that go into it. And it's you come in and you look at an engagement. We were talking to a developer earlier today at lunch, and it was like, you don't have to buy the whole thing. It's like, what is the business challenge that you're trying to solve, and then to take it to the next levels. If you have a PC game and you want to port it to mobile, we're there. If you want to figure out how to monetize on a mobile perspective and not pay the tax of what's going on from the platforms. We're there. We were the forefront of that back in 2021 and building those opportunities. Again, leveraging governmental opportunities and being forward thinking about that. That's one of the things that it takes a lot of courage, and our CEO and founder it's exciting in leading that charge with us to tell that story, communicate what's going out there, and putting the facts behind it and what we're building and putting to it so we can build for the future and give everybody that opportunity. It doesn't matter if you're in Dubai, if you're in Vietnam, South Africa. You don't have to be in California to benefit from those opportunities. You know, tons of game development in California and in the United States, but the growth opportunities outside of what's happening. And that message that we've been sharing and been communicating, getting feedback on, going from the magenta to spark blue, as our design team would call it, going into it, being very specific of what that looks like. And we've been testing things, and we January 10th with the match, we were with Stevenage and seeing what's going on. So that logo will be on there for another 2 years as we go forward with Stevenage and a collaboration that we're doing with partners, looking at it from AAAs to 3 people in a garage that have a concept and idea, a lot of stuff coming out of the universities to be able to provide that experience and all the things that people need to be successful. And we really believe in that, and we're able to provide that additional value above and beyond what we see from anywhere else in the industry.
Do you feel that where the brand maybe, or where it was positioned previously, people neglected to what you're actually able to offer? And I feel, is that why this has come around as well? Obviously it's a time frame thing, but is it also just that refresh to be like, you know what, we aren't just payments, we are everything that's in here. And
you said
I'm excited
it perfectly.
to see what these new products are. I'm going to probably pick your brains after and see if you'll tell me off air. But no, it's good. I think it is just that rejuvenation of the brand, because I rightly or wrongly, will have looked at Xsolla several years ago, and that's what my impression would have been. It was payments until I got to know you guys, spent time with you guys, talking to the team, and really understood like what it is that you're able to offer and the value that you add to the developer community on an individual basis rather than just as a company-wide basis. I think it is important for everyone to be aware of that. And if this rebrand and new look goes out to market and allows you to do that, then fantastic, because I think the support that you guys offer is exactly what the industry does need. So no, and I think you answered most of my questions I had around the brand in that statement that you were mentioning there.
I think one other thing though that I would add about the brand is it also is a strong signal internally to the team of like, hey, we're not just saying that we provide much more now, all the things, right, that you need to run and scale your business. But it's a great signal to the team as well. And it allows everybody to get remotivated and rally around, this new brand and open conversations about like, hey, what are you guys doing? Yeah.
No, it's good. So I'm excited to see Xsolla 2.0, shall we say, on that one. So no, I will make sure everyone stay tuned to that. So then my kind of a next topic that I want to discuss is kind of what you would say the current state of the games industry is right now. It's one of those conversations that everyone has an opinion. Everyone will have a statement what they think is right, they think is wrong, what's going right, what's going wrong, this shouldn't be done, etc. But keen to understand, you've been in the industry for a long time. You're more involved than most. So I kind of want to understand your thoughts on it. So if we were to kind of step back to sort of the more global thing, what's your current read on the state of the games industry as an overview right now and where it's currently sat?
Yeah, so I think, look, first of all, I think you get so many different answers because the reality is the games industry is many, many different things, and it can mean something completely different to you than it does to me. The types of games we play, where we play games, what we play on, all of that, right? So it's a very complex industry, which is part of the reason you get so many different answers. If you ask a console fan about the state of the industry, they're probably going to be a little down right now, right? Whereas if you ask a mobile player, they might be like, well, things are, it's hard to find games, it is what it is. A PC player, oh man, this is a great time, right? There's so many cool games. So it can mean different things to different people. But I think the macro takeaway is the games industry is still a great industry. In aggregate, when you combine everything, it is still a growth industry. It's not seeing the double-digit growth that it had seen for the past decade, but it is still seeing growth rates that are above what traditional industries are. You're seeing 6%, 7%, 8% growth out there, which is fantastic. So At the same time, though, it's an industry that is starting to mature in the sense that companies are getting more professionalized, they're getting more mature as businesses. So you're seeing a shift, a combination of a shift from, that the hype, the profitability coming from pure growth has slowed down a little bit, and the maturing and the understanding of how to treat it as a business is combined, creating an environment where games companies are starting to look more at the margins. That's what I'm trying to get to. Companies are much more aware of their margins. And not, of course, the big companies like Activision, right? For many, many years, that's how they were successful. They focused on margins. But now many game companies are thinking about, hey, I'm paying 30% fees to a platform. How can I do better, right? And that has brought us to a time where direct to consumer or direct to player has become a much bigger part of businesses. The web shops that Berkley had alluded to earlier are a huge part of mobile businesses now. And that's come about because these companies are looking at how do we continue to get high growth, high profit, and it's not going to come just from expanding the growth side of the business. It has to come from really maximizing our margins. So I think it's really exciting. It's nuanced. It's not just the wild grow days, but it is still growing and it is still profitable, and profits are still going up when you look at how to run a business properly.
I think a lot of the comments that people have around the industry probably do come from that post-pandemic boom that we had, where the industry went like that through the COVID, and then it's obviously then leveled out, which you say is more studios looking at, we maybe have too many overheads and we're not being as profitable as we need to be. And I think then people look at that immediately as a negative, that the industry is suffering. Obviously, we've had a lot of layoffs, a lot of redundancies, and they still continue, unfortunately. And I think that people then look at that, the industry is suffering, when in turn you're sitting here and saying, no, the growth is still there. It's just not what people maybe got used to when we came out of COVID and it flew through the ceiling. And it's just a bit of a leveler. But some of the other comments people have, and get your opinion on this, is, are we in a bit of kind of a creative renaissance, shall we say, or is it kind of sequel fatigue? Because it does seem like many of maybe the more AAA sort of size games that are coming to market, the creativity maybe isn't there like it used to be, and it is very much, we've seen that before, and it feels very reskinned, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And my count, first of all, yes.
Yep.
Certainly there is an element of that. And when you look at AAA, you're also seeing a contraction, right, where companies are focusing on fewer, bigger titles, right? And that tends to lead to a minimizing of risk, and things get a little homogenous and all of that, right? But at the same time, we are in a bit of a renaissance. You look at the Game Awards this year, and I believe out of the top games that were nominated, there were, I think, 3 or 4 indie titles that were nominated for the first time. So you look on Steam and on PC gaming, and you see, indie titles breaking out at a much higher rate than you had in the past. So, there is still, I think, a renaissance in cool games, but it's happening perhaps in a different area than what people were hoping for. And that's what I mean earlier when you ask different people about the industry, it means different things. Yeah. Console gamers tend to be more on that AAA side. Sure, not a whole lot of fresh things happening there, at least until GTA comes out, right? Yeah. Then everyone will be like, oh, it's a whole new renaissance. But on the PC side, you are seeing, I think, a renaissance with a lot of cool games that are coming out.
It's a question on GTA there, as you mentioned it. I wasn't going to mention it because it's one of those things that gets mentioned a lot. Do you feel that it's right that everyone's betting on GTA being kind of the somewhat a bit of a savior of AAA? What's your opinion on it?
I wouldn't say that it's the savior of AAA. It will certainly look. AAA is something that is AAA because it's the kind of game that people who are not core gamers will also buy. People that are buying only 2 or 3 games a year will buy the AAA game, right? Yeah. So it does become a market mover, right, in the sense that it will bring in enormous amounts of revenue. The knock-on effect there is, though, that when these big AAA games come out, they do generate a lot of additional interest in investing in games, right, and in the whole games industry. And that does bring in, more investments. It brings more opportunities. It does allow more games to get made, right, through all of that. So in that sense, it kind of can be a savior of the industry, but it's more of it becomes such a bellwether moment. And it's like people that were not thinking about games now all rush to get into games.
It's if it's that successful, everyone wants a piece of the pie,
right.
isn't it, at the end of the day? So that's where that investment tick up could be, going, you know what, maybe we could invest in something that could be that big.
Investments, even in World Government Summit is happening this week, so it motivates, regular governments are like, oh, maybe we should invest, provide more incentives to get game, like you said, everyone wants a piece of it in a different way.
Yeah, well, touch wood that comes out this year. Everyone touch wood on that one. So question for you guys. Obviously, you're sat on all sides. Studios, publishers, platforms, tools. What do you see is going well right now, and maybe what's not going so well?
Yeah, I think what's going well is game companies connecting directly with their players in ways that they have not done before. And that is a combination of regulatory and legal, environments that have opened that up, and specifically I mean the ability for like mobile games to be able to go off outside of the App Store and connect directly with their players. That's been a huge benefit, not just to the companies in being able to retain more of their margin, but they've actually been able to develop better relationships and understandings of what their players value, which has increased the value proposition of games for players, which in turn generates more revenue. So that's all been amazing. And the infrastructure is there to support that. A company like ours provides, into the branding, not a hat there, all the things, right, to succeed in that space. And I think conversely, things that are going wrong is, I think a little bit of, it's a lot around discovery. It's incredibly hard to find. There's so many games out there now, right? The ability to make a game, the ability to monetize it, to bring it to market has never been easier, right? That has created a lot of great content in the channel, and it's made it incredibly hard for the consumer to find, great games, right? Great games are being launched every day that never find an audience. That is a huge pain point for the industry that really needs to be solved. And so I would say that's part of it that's not going great.
Yeah.
I'll start with the negative, the UA cost, like hands down, probably one of the number 2-3 issues that any game developer is dealing with on a daily, because it's going the wrong direction. Yeah. It's going way high. And then you look at it, particularly if you're on the platforms, you're already taking a tax penalty of 30%. You need to be launch on the platform. We always say that, launch on the platform, then figure out we'll help you figure out the monetization in addition to that, what's going on. But you're spending that, then you're spending advertising costs, you're spending with these different platforms to go get engagement, the social media, the just Google buys, like things like that you're doing, the numbers are going the wrong direction and it's getting more expensive. The opportunities on the positive side is going into government changes and policies that are coming in place that are protecting consumers, but then also opening up those opportunities for developers are helping them go monetize, so you can take some of that profitability back and then go solve that UA problem.
Yeah. It's a challenge because you see, obviously, like on Steam, the amount of games getting released on a daily basis. How do you stand out from that crowd? And it's a case of, not to say that all the games are the same. They're not. They're far from it. But if you release in a game, there's a good chance there's another game that's similar somewhat. And what's your differentiator, and how do you create that audience? It's very difficult, and I think that's where indies do struggle in terms of competing against, whether it be your AA's or your AAA's that kind of already have somewhat of a fan base of somebody that's played a game that they've made in the past and go, oh, that was a good game, so I trust these guys. I think it becomes that really difficult piece, and I get lost. I get lost even if I go on a PlayStation store and I start going down a rabbit hole of what's there, let alone when I pop up my Steam Deck and go on there and go, whoa. Right. And you go on what's the top 10 and you look through those and you pick one of those. How do you then get found if you're top 200, top 250, for argument's sake? It's a unique challenge, and I'm sure that you guys are probably working on something in the background for that, so I'll leave it at that. But that'll be great to see. But I kind of wanted to get some of your takes around some other bits here, and these are kind of what I was saying, bold takes, and I will go there. But what's one thing about the industry that frustrates you, or you think that people are too afraid to say out loud?
I'm going to say internally within the companies and the studios and development that this is what I look at it. Like when we go hire from our team perspective, don't look in the mirror. Hire with different points of view, different personalities. We go, more opportunities for women in games is necessary, is needed. More creativity, more ways of going into it. Looking at different cultures, different hyper localized micro cultures to go into it and bring people. That's why we've expanded in Kuala Lumpur. We're expanding here in the Middle East. We're looking at different places to get new ideas, new development, like what's going into it. So it's not the same old just dude culture anymore. Game development and game usage is getting almost 50-50 going into it. Lockdown changed that. It wasn't just the young kids anymore. Yes, there were moms, there were grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncles that are like playing casual games and going into it. Your user base is no longer myopic. It's no longer consistent. It's very diverse. It's very unique in different target markets that you go into and what's going on. That it can be frustrating at times to see not enough opportunity being given to different folks. That's why we partner with a lot of communities, a lot of groups around the world to provide those unique opportunities. Things we're doing with scholarship programs at GDC, things we're doing with WIGI and Women in Gaming International as examples, like opportunity, just collaborate with good people that goes into it so that it's open for everyone. And it's not just, kind of dude culture anymore. What's going into it. You go to these events and very diverse, unique points of view and people that come into it. Would love to see a lot more opportunity being afforded. Bring new people who into the gaming culture that weren't into it. Nerd culture's cool now, and it's being picked up, and it's not just for the kids anymore.
Yeah, so I would say there's two. One is in the player-facing side, and one is in the developer side. So for the player side, and it ties in a little bit to what Berkley was saying there, is gamers who get so hardcore with the game, right, that they don't have patience for new gamers who come in. And I'm a huge Apex Legends player. I play it every single day, a couple of hours a day, except when I'm traveling. I can't bring my rig with me. But, it is so frustrating to see somebody who has some experience with a game, especially a high-skill game, right, who then has no patience for a new player who comes in and not only has no patience, but is toxic or, says crappy stuff to them. Yeah. And it's like, man, don't you realize you're pushing away, you're diminishing the player base? So from a player perspective, that just understanding that not everyone's at the same skill, there's that patience for players who are new, right, and coming in, and, the lack of shepherding new players into the game, right, which just makes a game healthier in the long run. So that's frustrating from a player perspective. From a developer perspective, it is, whether it's developers or publishers or funding, partners, anyone who's going in to make a live service game who doesn't take the time to understand that it's a long game, right? That this is not a retail launch where you're going to launch it and make all your money back in the first 3 to 6 months, right? It's like you're not even going to get your metrics proven and right-sided until 3 to 6 months after launch, and that you need to stay committed to it for the long term. And this is frustrating because this is where we've seen a lot of the layoffs happen over the past few years with studios that either didn't have the commitment from the parent company or got acquired by a new parent company that no longer had the commitment to focus on that sustainable phase, the sustained phase of launching a game, achieving metrics of growth, and then scaling it, right? So I think that's really frustrating for me because it is very difficult to get a live service game up and running. And then if you don't have the commitment either from the development side or the funding side or the publishing side to stay with it for the long term, to get it stood up, it's going to fail. And that's just frustrating because it doesn't have to be that way, right?
It's almost the business of gaming for both of those answers that you gave there, in terms of the first is, if you're a player and you're shutting the door to new players, is that game going to have the longevity if you're not allowing new people in? You need the new people there to make the developers continue enhancing that game. And then same way on the live service, if you don't understand that you're going into that live service arena and it's going to take such a long time to get up and running, why shut it down after X amount of time and waste all the money, capital, time, livelihoods in order to get there? So it is really probably then understanding what gaming looks like as a business model, which is For businesses and developers, they should do. Publishers, they should do. For the players, not so much, because you're a player and that's all you care about is yourself in terms of that scenario, or your little squad or whatever it might be. But no, I like both of those answers, and obviously yours as well. I think women in gaming, diversification, even bringing people into the games industry that aren't in there right now.
Right.
Fresh ideas, fresh perspectives. If it is just the same people moving around the industry, you're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. You need some rejuvenation in there as well. So.
The creativity would get limited.
Exactly.
And going into it, because you look at games and going into it, you know, to add another one is like, as a brand guy, they don't think about the brand right away.
Yeah.
Like, what's the brand launch? What's the communication? What's your engagement strategy? What's social? Like, you need to think about that from day one. Not, oh, okay, we got the game, we're ready to launch. What now? Like, you've missed a lot of opportunity going into it, and you're going to spend a lot more money there at the end of going into it. So think about that. Be smart. Come up with different ideas. Do a unique perspective. There's new platforms coming out there, different social platforms, channels, things you can go use and go engage with, and it changes every day.
You almost need to gain those customers and those players from day one. And
100%.
take them on that journey of development all the way through the teasers, the trailers, the community building, so that when it does launch, you're good to go.
You see that in movies. They do a lot. Sometimes they'll leak.
Yeah.
You know, you use that. I'm like, that's calculated.
Well, you've had the Marvel ones all December.
The Marvel ones get very specific. Like when Star Wars was this last 3 episodes and things like that, they're going to all of a sudden, oh, yeah, there's a photo of everybody together, and the only reason you're together is there's a new movie coming. Like, that's calculated. Like, things like that, but start telling that story. Share a little bit of the trailer. Share a little bit of your gameplay. Share what's going on. Start developing that community around, particularly as you're just going in, version 15, 16, 17 of your game, like what's going on. What's new, what's coming, do you communicate that out there, because it can get stale. And as a brand person, that drives me crazy. And like, you think about it, because marketing is not an afterthought. There should be a seat at the table from day one.
Perfect. And I think that viral interest is so important nowadays. We live in a world where going viral is what everyone wants to do.
Sure.
You should be doing that as a developer or a publisher, is getting that game viral as quick as possible. Question then, Web3 in gaming, misunderstood or misused?
Misused, I would say. Absolutely. Look, the big problems with Web3 now are scalability and adoption. And scalability in the sense of the technology being something that is fast enough and easy enough for massive transaction volume. And then the adoption part is something that is low friction enough or even invisible so that the mass market can use it, right? So I think the technology, the use cases are out there, but they just haven't really been applied. They've been stuck in a Web3 bubble of like Web3 believers making Web3 products for themselves, right? And it's kind of, you create a very small ecosystem and opportunity at that point, and it's very difficult to break out of it, if not impossible. So I think the functionality of Web3, the promise of Web3, is very, very powerful. But it's more than just, you have an item that you can track the lineage of, right? Or I'm going to get this sword and I'm going to turn around and sell it for $100,000. It's like, that's part of it, but that's really limited. Or making a game that's purely built around Web3 economics. It's like, but what could you do? How could you take real world things and bring them on chain, bring blockchain functionality to them in a way that makes everybody's lives better without them even realizing that they're using blockchain? I think that's a real opportunity out there. Yeah,
perfect. No, I agree on that last one. I think the technology as itself is great. It's just how is it used to benefit the player rather than maybe exploiting the player base, where that play to win element really kicks in, which most people that play games playing for the enjoyment. The benefits of being able to upskill and win, etc., is a bonus. It shouldn't be the main mechanics of why you're logging in to play that game on a regular basis. So we're drawing close. So I want to kind of touch on a few bits. Now, I wanted to have a bit of a question here around kind of looking ahead for Xsolla. And you've mentioned that there's some stuff on the radar that you can't tell me just yet, so I won't pry too much into that. But I kind of wanted to ask a question here is, do you feel there's any under the radar trends that you think are about to blow up in this industry and really sort of come to fruition?
We've talked a little bit about it, and it's like, what does it mean? The whole direct-to-consumer push. I think 2026 is the year.
Yeah.
Last year was like, get the regulations, let's figure out the policies and what's going on. The people that take advantage of it, and because it can be a headline, it can be things, but the people that really engage in it are going to grow exponentially. It's another one of those cases. We talk about investment here. You have to do it.
Yep.
Like, you have to take control of that conversation. I think it's not enough people are paying attention to that every game should be doing it around the world. And engagement, it doesn't matter what platform you're on. Yep. But like owning that experience, now the regulations and policies are going to help open that up. Things that are going, and you're starting to see it trickle around the world, those opportunities. So you're going to see that really, really, really expand, I think, in this year. And you're going to see new games as they're coming out, and it's going to be very aggressive on the direct-to-player, direct-to-consumer experience, more so than ever before.
Yeah, and I think building off of that 100%, the idea that direct-to-consumer is more of a function, right? It's more of a tactical approach to transacting, and this concept of direct-to-player is more of a system, like a systemized approach. And it means much more than just a transaction, right? It's about how do you build, not just own, but build that relationship with players, build communities. How does that allow you to create better value propositions, both within the game and outside of a game, for your players? And that is a huge trend. And everything is in place now for game companies to really lean in and take advantage of that.
Perfect. And then I have a few quick fire questions that I normally sort of wrap up on, just to sort of get a feel for yourselves as well. So I'll start with you, Berkley. Favorite game of all time?
I'm going to date myself. One that I've always played, it was the early Nintendo. I loved Mike Tyson Punch-Out. That was my favorite. Like, going into it, everybody's going to be like, what's going on from the numbers and the games that are coming out, of what's happening. But that's always mine.
Yeah.
Like, on a personal, I will consistently say that. Nearly fried the Nintendo the year we got it for Christmas. Just try to play it and get it figured out. The one, like, from an IP perspective, is just Mario, and like where it's come from and where it's built and everything. I can't even count how many games it's been, from the original IP that was rolling out, and like what's going on. It's cultural, it's cross-ended to not just the game, it's in movies, obviously now what you're seeing in Hollywood. It's your streaming content, your social media, you're in amusement parks and stuff like that now. It's like, it's anything that has that opportunity to transcend is a significant perspective.
And just what we were talking about earlier as well, when we were talking around sort of the World Game Summit and what the industry is bringing, the amount of games that's now crossing over into TV, into films. The culture of games is bleeding so much more now than it probably did prior into the rest of the entertainment world. Obviously, they've got the God of War being created now, which I'm really looking forward to. So there's so many good things that's happening that's coming from the industry that we work in, which is great to see. But Chris, favorite game of all time?
Oh, Apex Legends.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit 4,000 hours pretty soon. So.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, that speaks for itself, you know, the amount of time that I've put into that game. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Some serious commitment.
Yes.
Don't think I've ever put 4 hours into any game. Is there any game that you'd, throughout your careers, wish that you'd managed to or been able to work on? And I don't want Apex Legends as your answer.
It's something else.
Because I think that's a given.
That's a given.
Any others?
Honestly, for me, World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that game as well. And just the first, I mean, there was Meridian 59 that I got into before that, but World of Warcraft was really the first massive multiplayer online game that had this amazingly rich world, right? Where, I mean, I would just wander across the land and go into zones that I had no business being in, just to explore and see the landscape, the fauna, the whole, just this whole world. And I always thought, man, that would have been cool to work on that. And
yeah, perfect. Berkley?
I'm going to say Call of Duty because of the culture behind it and just the community. Everybody gets on, puts their headsets on and gets after it. And just it's another one that's extended beyond the game. And like it's very clearly going into it. I mean, Halo would be my second one.
Yeah.
That I would put into it. Another culture, another movie, another content, things that was going on, just to have the opportunity to be there and be like from a marketing perspective, I'd look at like to geek into that and to be able to do that and build those communities would have been amazing.
Yeah. And then one of my questions was going to be, I probably won't ask you, Chris, is what do you play at the moment to unwind when you get time?
When I get time, it's on the Switch with my daughter.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to Mario because we have very full contact Mario Kart racing, like as we're like elbowing each other, going into it. So just those are fun. We do it Friday night.
Yeah.
It's Friday night. Go make some pizzas. Put the Switch, turn on the Switch, and get after it from Mario Kart. And mom, grandma, everybody gets involved.
That's cool.
That goes into the conversation, but it's fun because it's just not a single player experience, and you get to do that, and it's cross generational for us.
Is there anything you play apart from Apex?
There is. So I'll play Fortnite, which is Clash Royale with my son.
Yeah.
We've actually also started recently playing the F1 game together and everything. So we've become big F1 fans as a family. So yeah.
Did you watch the film?
Watched the film. Been to some races. Love it. Yeah.
No, it's cool. It's
cool. It is cool. Yeah.
And that kind of draws the end of the conversation today. Obviously, you've got some more time in Dubai over hopefully the next couple of days. Probably a lot going on in terms of your schedules, but have you got some downtime to actually enjoy being here whilst you're here, or are you just back to back to back?
Pretty much back to back.
Yeah.
It's on to the next one after this. That's what I always say. We leave an event. It's on to the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully you find some time to enjoy some of the time while you're here, but I just want to thank you both for coming in today. I know your schedules are frantic, so thank you for coming from the World Government Summit to a podcast with me here. I really appreciate that. And it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. And obviously, I'm going to hang out with you guys tomorrow as well, so I'm looking forward to that. So, Chris, Berkley, thank you very much for joining me on the Level Up Lounge.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you, John. This was great.
No, thank you. And to anyone watching or listening today, really hope you enjoyed that. The first one back of Season 2. There's plenty more in store, so we'll see you again soon.